President Biden has signed a new bill to allow arms lending to Ukraine. The modern-day Lend-Lease Act has escalated U.S. involvement in the war. Angela Stent is a non-resident senior fellow at Brookings. She's the former National Intelligence Officer for Russia and Eurasia at the National Intelligence Council and author of the book Putin's World, Russia Against the West and With the Rest. Angela, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good to be here.
So what does the new arms lending bill mean for the number and type of weapons sent to Ukraine?
Well, we're trying to provide the Ukrainians with as much as we can to keep pushing back against the Russians. So it's the anti-tank, anti-aircraft, it's artillery. They need a lot of artillery to push back against the Russians. So this is more sophisticated weaponry. And as you said, it's Lend-Lease, evoking World War II. Of course, Putin is saying that he's fighting World War II against the Ukrainians, and we're saying we're fighting World War II, or we're helping the Ukrainians to fight World War II against the Russians. And so we will continue to supply them with all these weapons as long as, I know the Senate's voted on it. I think Rand Paul's put a hold on it for the moment, but hopefully it should be voted on by or cleared by next week.
You know, how has Russia responded to the arms lending bill, if at all? I mean, how have they reacted to the more sophisticated American weapons flowing into Ukraine?
Well, so the Russians have been reacting ever since we really started supplying the Ukrainians with more weaponry. They're saying this is a proxy war. This is NATO threatening Russia. I mean, they said that before the war began. They're saying that more now. And then they're saying we will take appropriate measures to retaliate against this. So there are lots of threats there, but it's really unclear what they can do. They're pretty much bogged down in Ukraine. They're making very slow progress at the moment, so they can hardly open a new front somewhere else, but certainly the threats are there.
And as you said, I mean, Russia is saying that this is a proxy war with the U.S. I mean, for all intents and purposes, are we in a proxy war with Russia?
Well, it certainly looks as if we are. I mean, the U.S. Would not say that we are in a war with Russia, but since Russia, says that Ukraine is a puppet of the United States, it does look as if it's a proxy war being fought on Ukrainian soil. But of course, the Biden administration has been very careful to say there will be no American soldiers there, so that it will not be a real war with Russia.
You know, some news outlets have reported that the U.S. had shared intelligence with Ukraine that led to the deaths of several Russian generals and the sinking of that cruiser Moskva. What effect has that information being public had?
So I think it's very unfortunate. This kind of information should not be made public, and the government should do what it does without talking about it. So I think what that has done is then for those people who criticize the United States for supporting Ukraine, and obviously for the Russians, that then reinforces the story that this is a war that the United States is sort of indirectly waging on Russia. And certainly the Russians have again said that this emphasizes their view that they're threatened by the West, which is what they've been saying all along.
And I wonder how that information being public impacts other countries like India or China.
So, India and China, neither of them have condemned Russia, neither of them have sanctioned Russia. The Chinese repeat all the Russian propaganda about this being a war to stop NATO from threatening Russia. And so I think it would reinforce for them that the U.S. is on some level a party in this conflict because of its support for Ukraine. And I think it hasn't done anything, particularly in the Indian case, which is, after all, an ally of the United States with Australia and Japan in the Quad arrangement. It hasn't done anything to change India's view of that and to come out and criticize Russia.
And do you think that, I wonder if you agree with critics that say that the administration should stop worrying so much about escalation and just focus on Ukrainian victory?
I think we can't stop worrying about escalation, but I think we've been too quick to respond every time Putin says something threatening to then rethink what we're doing. The administration seems to believe that if we continue to support Ukraine, it can win. I think that then you have to question what does winning mean, and it's not clear that that's possible. But certainly that is the goal now. So I think you can't dismiss what Russia says, but I think, we have to formulate our policy and our support for Ukraine, based on what we believe is best for the situation there, and not spend too much time worrying about these Russian threats.
And I wonder, you wrote a book, Putin Against the West. Is there anything that the West can do to change that kind of idea that he has, that it's him against us? Or is this just paranoia and there's really nothing that the West can do about that?
Well, don't forget, Putin started off life as a KGB case officer. And when he came to power, he said, I was trained that NATO was the enemy. So he has always had a rather aggressive view of the West. He has always believed that the West is out to diminish Russia. And he's become more and more convinced of that as he has gotten older. And yes, more paranoid. So I don't really think there's anything that we could do now that would change his calculus. He believes that he has to prevail and that the West is the enemy. He's nearly 70 years old. I'm not sure that he's going to change his mind about that.
And what do you recommend to the Biden administration beyond what they're already doing as far as weapons and intelligence sharing?
I think they have to continue what they're doing. And then I think the challenge is to maintain Western unity. And so far, we have maintained it with our European allies and our Asian allies. But that's going to get more difficult as time goes on. And we suffer from inflation and high gas prices and supply chain problems. It's going to be harder to keep that coalition together. So I think that'll be one of the main challenges going forward.
All right, Angela, nice to talk to you. Thanks so much for being on the program. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.